Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson, and it's time for the match preview. Newcastle return to action after 3 weeks off. A welcome break for some, others would have preferred a game straight away to rid themselves of the nightmare of the Tyne-Wear derby. We're going to preview the trip to Selhurst Park, Sunday 2 p.m. kickoff in a game which I think is a must-win for Eddie Howe, given David Hopkinson's comments earlier this month. John, welcome back to the show. How are you enjoying the international break?
Well, Newcastle haven't lost for 3 weeks. I've enjoyed that part of the international break, but in a perverse way, I'm delighted we're back to playing Premier League football. It's not the same, the international break, by any means. I'm approaching it with a bit of trepidation, a bit of not certain what we're going to get. We never are these days. But with Newcastle, even when there's nothing to play for, there's something to play for, isn't it? If you know what I mean. There's nothing to play for, like they're not going to win a trophy and they're not going to make the Champions League. But yet Hopkinson's made certain there is something to play for with these amazing statements he's put out. And we can still make one of the European minor places. But you can never, if you're with Newcastle United, have a run in. It doesn't matter a thing. As long a run in as 7 games.
Yeah, well, let's talk about David Hopkinson's comments, because we haven't spoken since he sort of threw down the gauntlet to Eddie Howe, although the club then tried to kind of track back in many ways, and it wasn't meant in the way it came across. The quote that grabbed the attention of many people was that Eddie's our manager. I expect to have a great run to the end of the season here, and we'll talk about the future when it's time. Right now we're focused on this season's competition. He did then go on to say something along the lines of that we're not looking to make a change, but nonetheless, a quote like that certainly suggests that this is a massive end to the season for Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I mean, if there wasn't pressure on Eddie Howe, and of course there's going to be, because of results-driven game football, and you've just lost with 7 goals against Barca in a home derby, so there was pressure. But he made certain there was with that statement, because it was almost like he deliberately said he didn't mean it this way, but it was almost like you're on trial over the next 7 games and we expect you to get it right. He also made it abundantly clear, as far as I'm concerned, that Newcastle United want to be in Europe in some shape or form, and we had better go on and do this. I mean, no pressure after that statement, was there? I've got a feeling that his original idea was trying to straddle a fence and not fall off either side. And his original idea, I think, was to get a message over to supporters that, look, we haven't taken these 2 results lightly. We are creased by going out so badly to Barca and losing the derby. These have impacted on us. And therefore, he's trying to be something to all men. Like, you know, our manager isn't automatic. If things go wrong, then it will be reviewed. And we are hurt by these results, and it didn't really work. It came out for me as this guy's under pressure.
The comments kind of split the fan base, as does the topic on Eddie Howe's future. Yeah. Some were saying, well, you know, it's refreshing to hear the CEO come out and say he's not, you know, protected. He's not guaranteed to be in the job come next season, although he didn't say he wasn't. But, you know, I think a lot of people might have expected maybe Eddie Howe to get the full backing of the CEO when he's asked the question about Eddie Howe's future. But the bottom line is, as David Hopkinson mentioned in that press conference with the local journalists and nationals, that they expect European football, and, you know, the last few weeks hasn't been great. But I also think Eddie Howe, you know, he knows the last few weeks haven't been great. He knows he needs results, and he knows there will be a little bit of pressure. In many ways, I think he'll welcome that little bit of pressure as well, because I think that will drive him on to hopefully a good run start on Sunday against Crystal Palace. You mentioned there about Newcastle wanting to be in Europe, and what's really interesting is that I think me and you and quite a lot of people have spoken for months about, even the Europa Conference League, let's take that. From a footballing point of view, John, 100%. You want to go, you want to travel Europe, even though you have to go to some far-flung places, but it's about the experience, it's about the adventure, it's about being a cup competition that you have a good chance of winning as well. But if you get into the numbers for next season, Newcastle United in one way could have up to 15 or 20 million pounds less to spend because of the clash between the Premier League rules in terms of finance and the UEFA rules in terms of finance. And I guess the question is for the board and for you here is does that matter? Do you want Europa Conference even if it means Newcastle United have to have less to spend in the transfer window?
Well, it sounds amazing that that's the situation. But at the same time, you've got to boil football down and never lose what it's about. And what it's about is playing in as many competitions as you can and winning at least one of them. If we're not going to do that, if we don't want to get in the conference for financial reasons, etc., so we take our foot off the accelerator, what is the point of having a Premier League season of 38 games, etc., if we say, oh, well, we don't want what would be seen as success, making one of the... We don't want it, we're not bothered because we only want the big one. And with the minor ones, I mean, the Europa League is quite decent. I mean, that is good and it would be competitive and we would play some good sides. The conference would be absolutely dross to start with because you play some awful sides that you've never even heard of. But in the later stages, you come to the bigger sides and it's a trophy. Ask West Ham. They'd never won a European trophy. Moyes' only trophy. They had a bus round the east end of London and it was all, when they won it, ask them and their supporters how they saw it. And I'm a great believer. See, in my lifetime of supporting Newcastle, because I'm older than 9/10 of every supporter, I since '69, I hadn't seen Newcastle win a salty single thing till we won the League Cup last season. We've got to win things. And if I can win even the Conference League, maybe it's the Europa League, which if I can win that, I want to. Because we haven't won enough. If you're Manchester United in the time of Ferguson, if Arsenal with Wenger, if you're Man City now, you could say, well, do we want the conference? We're not too bothered. We want this, that, and that. But we can't pick and choose because we don't win enough. We have to win things. And we have a genuine chance of winning those. We really would have a genuine chance. And if somebody comes along and says, well, I don't want it because we'll be back into 4 competitions in a season, we can't handle that, with squad's not picking up, then why take part at all? Why have any ambition at all? We've got to have ambition. We've got to simplify things and say, do we want to win trophies? Is that what football's all about? And if the answer is yes to both those questions, we've got to be in.
And looking at the league table, first time I've looked at it in the last 3 weeks, Newcastle sit 12th on 42 points. Above them, Sunderland on 43, Brighton on 43, Fulham on 44, Everton on 46, Brentford 7th and 46 points as well, and 6th Chelsea with 48. So, a win on Sunday, and obviously other results have to go their way, but the table would look measurably better. However, I do think European football, it's just, I just think it's just a little bit out of reach for Newcastle United, given the mood, given the way they've been playing, given that you would argue for the large part of this season, bar 4 or 5 games, they've not been a great watch. It's not clicking. Yes, they're going to have players back, and we'll get onto that in a moment. But I just think Sunday's a huge, huge game. First for Eddie Howe, because you have to win the first of the 7, because you don't want to go into the final 6 having lost to Palace. But also, this is really the last chance to launch a very late bid for a European spot, whether that be Europa League or whether that be the Europa Conference. Lose on Sunday, and I think it's done. I think even if you win, the chance is still on all that high.
You've got to win and then win and then win. You've got to keep going. But, and you're absolutely right, we've spent all season saying, well, we're only X number of points from a European position, etc., etc. If we win this weekend, we'll close the gap. We've never done it all season. We have never done it all season. But we've had things where Anthony Gordon come out after the derby and said we're a better side than Sunderland and we shouldn't be losing to them. You've had Dan Burn come out and say we're a good side since in this last 3 weeks. Well, okay, guys, go out and prove it. and start to prove it against Crystal Palace, then against Bournemouth, and then all the way through to Fulham. Go out and prove it. You keep telling us what you are, do it. And this is going to be the last chance for this squad as a whole, as an entity, to make their mark, because the end of this season will be the end of a particular era. I don't mean that dramatically, and I don't mean it like whether Eddie goes or stays. I just mean there'll be a breakup of this side. Some are getting too old. Some, like Trips and Kraft, are going to be on the way. Others will be sold. Some big name players, at least 2, I think, will be sold. So it is the end of an era. So let's not go out with a whimper. We're hardly going to go out with a bang, because we can't. We can just make one of the European competitions. But it's easy to talk. Now do. We've been told that it's a better side. We, Geordies, have believed it's a better side than we've proved this season. We've honestly believed that. And we've been let down because repeatedly it just hasn't been. They're still saying it, the boys, and that's good. That's fine. I don't want them to say we're rubbish, etc., and just peter out. But they're still saying it, and I know they mean it. Well, go out and do it.
Yeah.
Go out and do it, Anthony Gordon. Go out and do it, Dan Burn. Go out and do it, Trips, as give your fond farewell, etc., etc. Go out and do it, some of them, to be able to stay here. Go out and do it, others, for getting the clubs that you want when you're going to leave Newcastle, whether that's Tonali, whether it's Livramento, whoever. Go out and make certain you've gone out and by showing what you are and how good you are.
And go out and do it for Eddie Howe.
Eddie. Eddie's been so loyal to them, has done so well, has made so many of them better players than they were when they joined here. They owe Eddie big time. Eddie doesn't owe them. Eddie's improved their career and has got the medals at Wembley last year, etc., etc. They owe Eddie. And they all say how good Eddie is as a man manager, and I think he is. He is excellent, and he gets the dressing room spirit spot on, etc., etc. Right, you've read about Eddie, about a great debate about whether Eddie's good enough to manage Newcastle, having just won the first domestic trophy in 70 years just last season and qualified yet again for the Champions League. He has been a huge success. The reason he's under pressure, I would say to the players, is because you put him under pressure collectively by failing and by taking your eye off the ball, or getting into the Isak situation, or thinking, oh, I can do what Isak did. I can get a transfer at the end of the season. You owe him. So give him a little bit back in these next 7 games and take the pressure off him, because he deserves that from your point of view for what he's done for your careers.
But then at the same time, the criticism of Eddie Howe, the fact that he is under pressure is warranted, and he has to, I hope, look at this setup and make some changes.
Oh, sure.
I think he'll play the same formation, but I think the big change that has to happen, first and foremost, is that Nick Waldemar needs to start up front. Let's scrap this midfield experiment. It is not working whatsoever. Let's play him up front as a centre forward. Let's give the directive to the wingers to get closer and run on as well. If anyone watched the Champions League in Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, Harry Kane is the prime example. He can drop deep, he can collect the ball. But what he's got, and the difference in quality in the wingers is quite substantial, but the instruction isn't. Get those wingers running on beyond them so Waldemar can feed him and then catch up with play. That's what has to happen on Sunday, and so on.
Yeah, I can follow that totally. Harry Kane's a slightly better finisher than Waldemar, I mind. Let's not just say he's had success because he's got good wingers.
No, but I think the point is that
I know the point you're making.
The team is built for his strengths, isn't it?
Correct. But to have good wingers that get down there and open up, you, as the centre forward, whoever it is, has got to be in the box ready to finish. You can't finish from 2 yards outside the box, and that's what Waldemar has got to do. I mean, we're going off at tangents here, but what I would like to see at Palace will 100% not happen, and that's I would like to see Waldemar play 10, because I think you would really... we've only got Gordon to play 9 then. That's one of the problems. But I think we would really see the best of Voldemort in a 10 role, or in the way Wirtz has used it at Liverpool, etc. If you want to see the best of Nick, I think that's the way to use him, rather than out 9 target man. But I agree that he's not a midfielder, and any idea that he could be a Joe Linton, the only same comparison is that you played centre forward and then you dropped into midfield. But I mean, there's no other comparison apart from they're both tall, because Joe's a beast of a man, strong and powerful, and Voldemort is built slim and quite airy-fairy. But they've either got to get the best out of Voldemort in these 7 games or next season, or they've got to sell him. Because you can't just keep floating around with him the way he is now. And, he split. The 2 huge debates from my point of view with fans at the moment is Eddie, is he in or is he out? And it's a split camp in Voldemort. Are you with him or is he a flop? And really the fan base is split on both those situations, and split quite considerably, and quite volatile about the way it's seen as well.
I think on both topics you've mentioned there, we're going to find out the answer to both questions over the next 7 games.
We are indeed.
Certainly on Nick Voldemort, and I've said this a few times, I think, whoever the manager is, and I hope it is Eddie Howe because he's won, 7 out of 7, there needs to be a conversation in the summer about where Voldemort fits into his plans. Is he good enough to build the entire team around him? Is he good enough to change his system to play to his strengths? And if the answer to either of those questions is no, then you're going to have to look to move him on. He has been linked with moves back to the Bundesliga over the last week. Otherwise, into the midfield, we're hoping that Bruno should be available. He was pictured training back at Benton in the sunshine. Geordie land, as he called it, and that was a wonderful video to cast your eye across. If you haven't seen it, go on to the club's official Twitter account and you'll see it there. Tonali obviously played in the World Cup qualifiers as Italy were dumped out of the playoffs.
What a surprise after not being fit for the derby, isn't it? But there you go, that's another matter.
Lewis Saily as well, potentially could be back, and Fabian Schär as well. So do any of those go straight into the side? Schär, Miley, Tonali, Bruno?
Yes, Bruno. And that's the only one to go straight into the side. It's fabulous to have the others available, to have on the bench, to introduce during the second half. Miley's been out far too long from the start. Bruno's a different kettle of fish. He's unique. He's passionate alone to have it out there at a time where we're not too passionate. Him and Hall stand out like Belisha Beacons, the attitude towards Newcastle United and towards football. So you put Bruno out there. Shaw's had a long time out. Miley's had a long time out. I'll be thrilled to have them back on the bench, give them some time. But, for example, you couldn't start all 3. You put Bruno, Miley and Shaw on the side, and you're running a risk there on fitness alone.
So what is the midfield 3 for you?
We'll go back to the tried and trusted, Tonali, Joe Linton and Bruno. Miley is not ready to be considered. Ramsey has been one of the, shall we say, lesser flops. He's done quite well.
He's probably been the shining light over the last few weeks, really.
Yeah, he's done very well, but not as well as those 3 when they care and when they're up there and when they're up forward. And of course, we're not just selecting our own side, we're trying to second guess Eddie. And Eddie loves those 3, and I would think he would go with those 3, with Ramsey and Miley to be brought on.
I mean, you assume, given that Tonali played in those playoff games, that he's match fit, and so he should be ready to start. But I think if you're Jacob Ramsey and you're not in that midfield trio on Sunday, I think you'll feel hard done by, because I do think, as dark as it's been over the last few weeks, he is really coming to his own. He's starting to show why Newcastle paid all that money for him. He's starting to show why Villa fans were gutted that he was leaving. So for me, I would start him in the midfield 3 alongside Bruno and Joe Linton, although of course I can see the argument.
Tonali out.
Yeah, leave Tonali out on the bench for now. Going into the back line, obviously bottoming out injured after going off against Sunderland, but I thought he had a terrible afternoon as it was, but it would be good to have him as an option, which means it's going to be Malik, Chow and Dan Burn, isn't it?
I think so. I think it is. Again, you want a strong bench and you'll have Botman. It's going to, for me...
Well, Botman's out, isn't he, until...
Oh, because of
so he'll be out until, they said, the last few weeks of the season, but that's very open. That could be anything. But back is the boost, I guess.
Yes. Although I wouldn't just start them in this game, but yeah, I would go Chow and Burn. Livramento, I would play with Hull. I mean, that's the future of England. Those two probably. Whether Livramento is the future of Newcastle United is a different ball game. But I would start him because he's got an incentive. He's got to find his form. He's got to do well. If he's going to make England, if he's going to make the World Cup, he's got to make an impression. And if he's got to make an impression, there's only one place to do it, and that's in the Newcastle first team. So we would benefit if it was for the right reason or the wrong reason that he was so proactive. But I mean, I would start him for Trips because I would like to pay tribute to Trips very fleetingly. I think he's the sensational signing. What he did for us, I'll never forget him. He came here as a La Liga winner at a time when we were flat down like a lead balloon. And he not only was a wonderful player, but his ability to rouse people, to pull the team together, his leadership qualities have been totally magnificent. But he's 35, he's going to be 36 during next season. It's the right time to give him a big kiss and thank him for everything we've done. We've been too loyal to people in the past. Eddie has. I think people have stayed well beyond the sell-by date. And it's the right time for him to go. And he will, during these 7 games, and particularly at home, get the chance to start and get the chance for fans to show their appreciation of them. That will come. But we've got to start, as you said, Eddie and us, as Hopkins said, have got to start winning games. And we haven't got to pick a sentimental team down at Palace. We've got to pick a team to win.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned there the motivation for Tien Livramento with the World Cup coming up. You could throw the same challenge down to Dan Burn, because I think he's probably at risk of not going. I know Tuchel likes him because of the attitude he brings to the camp, but he's not performing at his best. Obviously, the injury that he had probably set him back a little bit, but it's going to be a big 7 games for him. Anthony Gordon's probably a shoe-in to be in the squad, but again, you could go on to his shoulder and say, well, look, you might be on the plane, but are you going to be
want to be in the team?
Exactly, you're going to be on the turf. And Harvey Barnes has got an outside chance of going, but again, that motivation is there for these players.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And we've got to take any advantage we can get. We might say the motivation should be you're playing for Newcastle United, but that hasn't worked too often this season with certain players. But yes, absolutely. I'm up and down, Andrew. 1 minute I'm saying, we are a better side than we've looked. Next minute I'm saying, how many times have we been let down? So why do I all of a sudden think, because we've had a 3-week break where nothing disastrous has happened, we're sort of back feeling a little bit better? But the last 2 games we played were absolutely shocking. The second half against Barca and the whole game against Sunderland were absolutely shocking. And, how much are we filled with confidence about Crystal Palace? And by the way, we're talking about Crystal Palace. This is, in lots of ways, the perfect game for Newcastle now, because they're no great shakes. They have a worse home record and away record. Their home record is awful. Isn't it amazing, by the way, the two sides, the 2 clubs that shook the football world last season, and every neutral loved it. We won the League Cup, our first domestic trophy in 70 years. They won the FA Cup, their first trophy ever. And we beat royalty to win it. We beat Liverpool, they beat Man City. They followed it up with a Community Shield win. Flying. Then we sell our best players. They do. We sell Isaac, they sell Eze and Gay. Their manager's definitely going. Ours is up in the air. But we've all both fallen from grace, having hit this wonderful thing last season where we both did spectacularly well against the odds. The sides were played in the two finals, both of us, and now we're both out of all company. Well, they're still in the conference, European conference, but and they're below us, and we're both in the bottom half of the table.
But a win for Palace and they'd go level on points with Newcastle, which tells its own story, I guess. But yes, they're in the Conference League playing Fiorentina at home on Thursday. So from a Newcastle point of view, you're hoping that's a tough game. You're hoping it's a tiring game and Newcastle can take advantage of that on Sunday. And you would think about the team that they're going to play. You would imagine their focus is fully on winning the Conference League. So that might lend itself to a weakened side on Sunday. And that is a positive, but also I just feel like Newcastle United, that's kind of something they'll just slip up on. Like if Palace play their weakened side, it wouldn't surprise us if Newcastle went out and lost that game, because my biggest concern, and there's plenty of concerns, but the biggest one is the mentality issue. I am slightly concerned about the formation and I would love to see a system change. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's the mentality. And I think when they're presented with an opportunity where you go, they should win this. They're favourites. They're playing the weakened side. You're playing your best side. They should win this. They need to win it because of what happened prior to the international break. You had 3 weeks off, no excuse. But then if they lost on Sunday, would I be surprised? Not entirely. And you said there, John, as well, we're feeling better. We're only feeling better because Newcastle haven't played for 3 weeks. I'm not feeling better about Newcastle's season or the prospects on Sunday. I'm feeling better because I haven't had to watch Match of the Day in 3 weeks.
That's absolutely correct. But you know what you were saying there, and I follow it totally. You know, they might have a weak inside. Their focus might be on Europe, not on the league. Isn't it awful that we think we need that sort of help to get a result at Crystal Palace? We ought to be going down to Crystal Palace and opening the door and saying, "Come on, I'm ready for you. Don't you worry about that. We're going home. We've got the bag here. Just drop the 3 points now, mate, because they're coming back worse to downside." We shouldn't be worried, hoping that their eyes are on Europe, hoping they might field not their strongest side. They haven't got a strong side to field, Andrew. They haven't got a strong side. They've sold all the flipping stars. All the managers going. That's had a huge impact. The fact that that's been said publicly, and I know he did that because he wanted the fans, but the fans have gone against him because of that. The players are thinking, well, it doesn't matter what happens because this guy's not going to be here next season. So either we aren't going to be here as well, or there's going to be a new man. We don't have to impress him or do. And the whole thing is drifted out of, completely out of sync. And therefore Newcastle ought to go down. But you're right. Can you imagine if we lost this on top of what's just happened, and on top of what Hopkinson said, and on top of a run-in? Bear in mind that the players that haven't been on international duty have had 3 weeks on the training ground, or when they weren't off. With the ones that were on international have had a week and a half, the back end of last week and all this week on the training ground. Refresh, get ideas. Eddie working with Voltemada on going back to 9 or whatever. They've had all what Eddie's desired, and they've had all the rest, and so that ought to show.
But are you expecting an immediate impact of that, or is it fair to say, and I know we haven't really got the time isn't on our side, but can you really expect it to happen like that, or do you say 2 games time, that's when you really start to see it?
We haven't got 2 games time.
I know that, but I'm just thinking, like, because I'm sure
2 games time.
Our listeners and viewers will be split between those who expect Eddie Howe to immediately have improved things, and those who will say, yes, time isn't on our hands, but two games time, and if things haven't improved after Bournemouth, then you go, well, wait there, you've had time on the training pitch, what's going on? Because where do you stand? Are you expecting to see a massive improvement from what's gone on?
I never expect anything with Newcastle this season, but I'm saying that ought to be. I'm not saying I expect it, but there ought to be. The one excuse they've all had all season, players, manager and coaches, was this: we're exhausted. This programme's been too tight. We haven't got a squad to handle it. And if only we could go back and look at the seasons we've qualified for the Champions League, it's when we've not had European football. So they've had a time like that. There is no more time. There's no more time, and there's no more excuses. We've run out of all those things. So let's clear the decks of all that. You either do it or you don't.
Do you think the chance of European football, is that also some motivation for the team? We've talked about doing it for themselves, talked about doing it for Eddie Howe, talked about doing it for the World Cup, but surely they look at that table and if they're coming out and saying we're better than this, then
totally, absolutely. But I find it difficult to buy that. It ought to be motivation, but I find it difficult to buy that because all season they've had the chance to qualify for the Champions League for next season. They've had a chance to stay in again and still be taking part in the Champions League if they've got a better second half in Barca. They might have still been there. They had a chance in the 2 domestic cups. They've had chance upon chance upon chance this season to make a permanent impression and haven't done. So, if we're talking now about is there an incentive they might make the European Conference? I mean, they've had enough incentive all season to make a lot more impact than we're talking about now. I mean, I'm just looking at these 7 games and seeing where they take us, and I'm pretty certain, I'm not at all certain it will make Europe in any shape or form. But we've got to do something. We can't go out in a whimper. This is Newcastle United, for goodness sake. This are players who keep telling us how good they are. We'll prove it.
I think it's funny because if we're going to play a game of word bingo and the words we use the most on this show, it would be must win and it would be turning point. Because how often have we said they've beaten XYZ, this is the turning point, they're going a little bit of a run now and then the week after they get absolutely thumped and we're down to feeling in the dumps. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN and Saily. Do click the link in the podcast description box to get a discount on both offers. Saily is the eSIM which provides you with network coverage abroad. You can choose from 200 destinations and affordable prices. And NordVPN allows you to browse safely on public Wi-Fi. One subscription can be used across 10 devices, so it's value for money. Click the link, support the podcast, and thank you to both of those for supporting us. John, one of the things you often say on this show, you recall something Joe Harvey would often say about, don't worry about them, let them worry about us. But as we've just kind of discussed, it doesn't really wash anymore, does it?
Well, we worry about us now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I'm making,
Yeah, we worry about us now. I mean, that was right, and that was Joe's philosophy. And it wasn't oversimplification, but they would look at the tactics. But he believed, hey, let them worry about us. Let them worry about how they're going to handle Supermax pace, what they're going to do with it, how they're going to get past Moncur at the back, etc., etc. And that is a good philosophy to have, because you can be too concerned about the opposition and scare yourself to death. Nothing like this to scare yourself to death with Palace, of course.
But you could have self-confidence for that to work, haven't you? I think that's the other thing that's missing. I don't think these players believe in themselves. They can come out and say we're better than this, we're better than Sunderland, we shouldn't be losing to them, etc., etc. But I look at the way they play and I look how they've played for the majority of this season, and I think they do. I think they lack self-belief. And whether it's in the individual, okay, that could be up for debate, but collectively, I don't see a team that believe in themselves, and that's a big issue going in these final 7 games.
Yep, I accept that. I hope that they do lack self-belief, because if they don't, what I've seen is shown indifference. And now that is some accusation, and I'm not making it, but I'm saying I hope it is just no self-belief. Because if it isn't that, it's indifference. And it doesn't mean the whole team. When it's a team game, you only need 3 players to lack confidence or be totally indifferent to the current situation. And you're playing with 8 or 9 men. And you can't win against a team that's got 11 bursting the gut. I hope it's lack of confidence, because if it isn't, it's indifference. And we saw that at the end of last season with Isaac, and I don't want to make accusations at this stage of the proceedings this time, but I've looked at 1 or 2 and thought, aye up, son, are you going down the same route?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed Newcastle United's stars remain on Tyneside, or at least if they don't, they're going to put everything into getting them higher up the table in the 7 games that are left. Just briefly, on the wings, I mean, I would play Anthony Alanga, and I would play Anthony Gordon out on the left, because I want Voldemort up top. I just said we shouldn't be using the phrase turning point, but I'm going to do it anyway. wonderful goal he scored for Sweden, and he'll be on a high as well. I mean, is that the turning point for Anthony Elanga?
I think these guys are in a cul-de-sac and they don't know how to turn. I would never put a turning point for Anthony yet. Elanga, I mean, I've been so disappointed. It's a toss-up between him and Wissa. Who I'm most disappointed in is probably Wissa. But really, they've been two very, very poor signings from last summer on what we have received so far from the pair of them. And I look at the outside right position of Elanga, and I mean, he runs like the wind, but he also is like the wind. He just goes in all different directions. And the Murphy of a year ago, the season before that, is a much better player than Elanga. But Murphy hasn't quite done it this season, but I would be tempted to go with Murphy because the one thing he can do is provide assists. He crosses accurately. And he actually tries to cross to a teammate. Elanga just whacks it across goal and says, "Hey, or somebody go and attack it," and hoping that there's somebody around that can go and attack it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I could get harsh. I can say Hope and Ramsdale. Doesn't matter. I can say Elanga and Murphy. Doesn't matter. Because I don't know what improvement the other one that gets in is bringing over that guy, you know?
And that's the issue, that if you're going to give Eddie Howe a little bit of leeway, is the fact that there are quite a few issues with form and players performing, because, you know, Murphy can get the balls into the box, but when Voldemort was playing up front, one of the biggest criticism was that he wasn't there to meet the crosses, and there's lots of those kind of issues across the pitch. So it is going to be fascinating to see the team on Sunday. But, you know, it's a big 7 games as well for the likes of Elanga, because he'll not be immune to the chatter in the gossip columns about a new winger coming in, and Wissa as well. You know, lots of talk that he could be moved on in the summer would be at a loss. So maybe he's going to want to try, well, hopefully he's going to want to try and say, wait there, I deserve at least a full pre-season and then a campaign to come under Eddie Howe or whoever it might be at Newcastle United. So it's not just about Eddie Howe, it's not just about the team, it's about individuals as well. Shall we get on to the important question then, John? And the question is, how is this one going to go?
Yeah, great question, isn't it?
It's your favourite question, right?
I mean, you could make a case for a win, you can make a case for a lose, and you can make a case for a draw. And you can also say, how the heck do you expect me to know? We're talking about Newcastle United here, and Newcastle United don't do the expected, they do the unexpected. And is the unexpected, i.e. losing, becoming the expected? I'm going to keep my belief in them for one more time. And it's mainly the heart rather than the head. I'm going to take Newcastle to win because I just can't contemplate us starting the 7-game run-in with a defeat. And if we start with a draw, mine, it's not much better than a defeat because we're playing catch-up. If you're genuinely taking Europe as being important, and Hopkinson is, and the club are, and therefore Eddie will be, then a draw's not good enough. We're not in a position that we're already in one of the European positions and we've just got to hang on to it. A draw away might work then with wins at home. But we've got this ground to make up. And only getting 3 points regularly from now on in is going to make that up. I'm going to stay with them for one more occasion. If we win, like I'm suggesting, then that may roll on. But I can't bring myself to go against them. And the game is far, far too important. To a lot of people, especially Eddie, to a lot of the players, etc. I'm going to stay with it. And it's very difficult to justify that because you cannot justify anything with Newcastle United at the moment, apart from the fact that has it concentrated minds what happened with Barca and Sunderland? Has it concentrated minds when they've been together on the training ground all this week talking about it, and Eddie have been talking about it? Has it not concentrated minds that they might want to help themselves, help Eddie, help the fans who have been so loyal to them all season for very little return? Are people going to start to repay faith? And to do that, we win at Crystal Palace. Anything short of winning at Crystal Palace, forget it.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right. unfortunately, I'm not that confident that you are.
Oh, I'm not at all confident, but
that's what you're hoping.
Yeah, and that's the way I'm going.
I think it has to be a win because David Hopkinson said what he said about the last 7 games. Because the season's gone as it has done, because of the last result coming into this game, this has to be a win because you do not want to go into Bournemouth at home on the back of a defeat to Crystal Palace, especially if it's a weakened side. There's lots of kind of scenarios which makes a draw not worthwhile, let alone the prospect of a defeat. And I just worry about the knock-on effect of that game against Sunderland. You know, coming and into this game, losing against your nearest and dearest, losing in the fashion they did. And yes, they're going to have players back. And yes, they've had a bit of time on the training ground. But is a 3-week break enough to get over what happened and what happened in Spain as well? I'm not too certain it is. And like I said earlier in the show, this is the sort of game when Newcastle United definitely slip up on, when everything's in their favour in terms of the opposition not really caring, in terms of the opposition not really being focused. I can see them losing this game, and I mean, I don't really want to say they will lose it because the knock-on impact of that is absolutely unthinkable. But if I'm going with my head, I say Newcastle United lose this game. If I go with my heart, I say it's a point. It's a scrappy point. If I look at neither and go with what I'm hoping for, then it's a win. But, you know, we've got to be honest and realistic. And I get people will say we're being thoroughly pessimistic here, but we're just being realistic with our own thoughts, aren't we, John? Hopefully it's a win, right? Hopefully it needs to be.
If it doesn't, if it's not a win, what happens in the next 6? It becomes pointless, doesn't it? I don't mean pointless like we lose them all, but it becomes just a nothing.
It's funny because I'm not looking forward to the game, and you can tell probably by the body language, about our voices, you know, we are feeling quite down about this. And then I wonder, you know, it's going to be a test of character in the dressing room because, you know, if we're feeling this way, like, how are the players feeling? Like, is there such a separation from a fan and a pundit and a journalist to a player, you think, or will they be feeling it? And it could be even worse given what happened against Sunderland and Barcelona. That's going to be a test of their character to make sure they actually...
It is, but are you a man or a mouse?
Well,
and would you, if you think, do I owe Eddie, do I owe the club, do I owe the fans, maybe get your bank statement out and look at how much is going in every week into your bank account and think, if I'm getting 80 grand a week or 100 grand a week or whatever, might I just roll the sleeves up that little bit higher on Saturday because we're under the cosh. We're under the cosh. And by the way, they owe the fans. They owe Eddie Howe. But above all else, they owe their self and their own self-respect. Each and every one of them individually owe themselves. They owe the fans, every one of them, and they owe Eddie Howe because Eddie Howe's been very good to each and every one of them. That's why they're in the team. That's why they're better players since they saw him. How about repaying some of that?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed it starts with a win at Selhurst Park on Sunday. Thank you to John for providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Do it, thumbs up, hit subscribe, get into the comments. I'll be back with a view from the opposition as well later in the week. Until then, enjoy the rest of the day and we'll see you guys very soon.